Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu News Analysis by Baji IAS Academy. See, we have a set of very important news articles. These news articles are important for both prelims and mains, right? So among all these articles, most of the articles are very important for mains examination. See, the first news article is talking therapy, Asha workers offer hope in rural Madhya Pradesh. Right, so Asha workers are known as accredited social health activists. Right, so they work at the grassroots level for the healthcare improvement of healthcare outcomes among the marginalized sections of the society. As part of this article, we will try and understand who are ASHA workers and what are the problems they are facing and how actually they are providing services in rural areas. The second news article is, should India consider phasing out nuclear power? See, past 2 to 3 days, we have been discussing about the nuclear liability clause, right? We have been discussing about the nuclear liability clause. So, the nuclear liability clause and the Jaitapur nuclear power plant, and the government of India's plans to set up more nuclear power plants in order to meet the targets which set under the Paris deal, and along with the mission Panchamrut target. Okay, so Panchamrut target, where the government of India promised to achieve the net zero emissions by the year 2072. Okay, right. So the next important article is the threat of rising sea level. See, we already know that the global warming and the climate change are leading to the melting of glaciers. Okay, it leads to the melting of glaciers, and melting of glaciers in a way leads to rising sea levels. As part of this article, we'll try and understand what is the impact of melting of glaciers on the coastal communities in India. Apart from that, we also have an article regarding the same-sex marriages. I mean, there have been arguments going on in the Supreme Court, and the constitutional bench is already constituted to decide the legal recognition to same-sex marriages. Now, recently, Supreme Court held that it can play a facilitator role to push government to ease concerns of same-sex partners. Okay, the last article is Dimasa rebel group signs a peace pact with center and the Assam government in the northeastern regions, right? So this article is specifically important for prelims examination about the Dimasa rebel group. Okay, now let's jump into the first important news article. The first important news article is all about the ASHA workers. Okay, this is all about the ASHA workers who work at the grassroots level healthcare, at the grassroots level healthcare system. Right. First, understand who are ASHAs and when it was established. In 2000, ASHAs were established in the 2005. The government of India National Rural Health Mission. Okay, National Rural Health Mission launched the accredited social health activist program in the year 2005. Okay, so it was launched in the year 2005. So total 1 million plus number of ASHA workers are working across India in different states. And as of now, one ASHA worker is serving 1000 population. Okay, so in a way, India have a low ratio of doctors or the healthcare human resources. So therefore, in a way, ASHA workers have been catering to the needs of rural healthcare or the grassroots level healthcare, and 4,000 to 5,000 approximate salary per month being given to the ASHA workers. This is a very low salary for the ASHA workers considering their duties. Okay, so there are set of responsibilities and challenges also for ASHA workers. So, what are those responsibilities? The responsibilities include uh, they are they work as a health educator in rural areas, and they also implement several government schemes on ground, and they also create awareness among the communities about the healthcare, vaccination, nutrition, etc. Okay, for example, there are several schemes related to healthcare. For example, Ayushman Bharat program, Swachh Bharat Mission, and the National Nutrition Mission. All these programs, they provide uh, information, and they also educate the people at the grassroots level. Okay, they also promote family planning. Family planning is also very important component of overall health architecture. So they also promote the family planning in rural areas, and they facilitate services like antenatal checkups, postnatal checkups. Okay, so before a birth, antenatal, it is antenatal checkups, and the postnatal checkups after birth. And they also take care of the vaccination and medicinal needs of the pregnant and lactating mothers. So apart from that, they also create awareness, disseminate information about the sanitation and good sanitation practices, especially the wash initiative. Okay, especially the wash initiative. And apart from that, they also conduct different surveys regarding the health care in rural areas, and they also ensure, promote hygiene, and they also monitor the COVID-19 patients. Don't forget, ASHA workers have played a very crucial role during the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it is about testing, treating, and diagnosing, right? Uh, in all these levels, ASHA workers have played a very crucial role, and there were several people who are infected with the COVID-19 pandemic, and most of them are ASHA workers, and also there is a high levels of mortality among the ASHA workers, okay, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and their efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, apart from these roles and responsibilities, they also take patients to the nearby hospitals, and they also convince the villagers on COVID-19 vaccination. Recently there was there was a trend, the vaccine hesitancy. Okay, vaccine hesitancy, and ASHA workers played a very crucial role in preventing the vaccine hesitancy and also convincing the villagers that the vaccine is safe. The vaccine is safe. Once you administer the vaccine, it will ensure that the disease will not spread to other people. As some of the roles and responsibilities, please remember, ashas are a very important topic for the gs2 paper. Okay, gs2 paper, right? So as part of the gs paper, you have to write the roles and responsibilities of ashas whenever the question comes. So therefore you have to remember all these points, right? These are very important points about the responsibilities of the asha workers. So along with the roles and responsibilities, asha workers have some challenges also. Okay, so they are not free from challenges. The challenges include, they walk on foot because there is lack of transportation facilities. Even though they have the transportation facilities, the honorary pay or the salaries are inadequate for them to afford any transportation. Apart from that, they serve remote rural areas. Because of these challenges, they normally walk on foot, and at least 15 kilometer every day. They walk on foot at least 15 kilometer every day, and they have the greater responsibilities and very low salaries. A salary of 4,000 to 5,000 is considered as a very lower salary, considering their immense responsibilities. They have a immense responsibilities and huge roles. So therefore, there is also a demand that the government should consider increasing salaries of ASHA workers, increasing salaries of ASHA workers, because they play a huge role in universal healthcare, providing healthcare benefits to the marginal sections of the society. Okay, and apart from these challenges, their incentives, performance based, work based incentives are also given to the asha workers. However, the government has also been delaying the incentives which are being provided to the asha workers. They also lack the ppe kits and gloves and other difficulties they are facing. Okay, so the asha workers generally don't have the ppe kits and gloves. They are very important equipment because they have to look after the patients who are infected with any disease, right? So they don't wear mask, they don't wear ppe kits, and they do not have gloves. So therefore it is the responsibility, the onus is on the government to provide them the necessary equipment so that they can provide all the services in a more effective way. Okay, so we have understood ashas and when it was established or when it was started as per the recommendations of the national health mission, national rural health mission. And as part of the today's given article, it is particularly related to the state of Madhya Pradesh, how the ASHA workers have been working tirelessly to, you know, provide services or provide relief to patients who are suffering with depression, especially women. Okay, especially women. So please understand. So accredited social health activist worker. This is the full form of ASHA workers. Okay, when it was formed in the year 2005 as per the recommendations of National Rural Health Mission. Okay, so right, in the state of Madhya Pradesh, ASHA workers have been helping in cope with the depression. So there are several women who are suffering with the depression, whether it is about the domestic violence, a child marriages, whether it is about the economic status. They are suffering with the depression, and ASHA workers have been instrumental in, uh, you know, uh, those women cope up with the depression. So apart from that, they also identify pregnant women within the state and also provide medication, prenatal care, antenatal care, along with ensuring proper vaccination for the newborn. Okay, so proper vaccination for the newborn is very important to reduce the child mortality rate, especially the under 5 mortality rate. So therefore, ashas have been working, in a more effective way, working round the clock to ensure vaccination for the newborns in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So ashas are also called as a foot soldiers because we have discussed in our previous slide that they walk around 15 kilometer a day. Okay, they walk around 15 kilometer a day, and they also reach to remote and rural areas. So therefore they are also called as the foot soldiers in India's rural public health system. Okay, so what is this project? The overall project is called as Project Empower. Okay, so whenever you are writing mains answer, you can quote this project as an example or a case study. Okay, as an example or a case study in the answer. Okay, this is a project Empower, and it is implemented. This project is particularly implemented to train ashas to become the first point of contact for people in mental distress. All right, so this is specifically to train asha workers to deal with mental distress of people. So the data shows that in India there are very healthcare resources personnel are available to deal with the mental resources, right? So not even one for 1 lakh population, right? So therefore on in contrast to this, there are around 10 mental health care professionals for 1 lakh population in Germany. Okay, not we have not even one healthcare professionals to deal with the mental distress. So therefore there are higher levels of mental distress, and there are low levels to solve this problem or to provide relief to this problem. So therefore asha workers are being trained to provide the mental, you know uh, uh, they will be the first point of contact for the people in mental distress. And this is the overall objective of the Project Empower, and it is being implemented in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, and asha workers have been instrumental in delivering services or delivering care at the grassroots level means generally at the rural village level, or at the panchayat level, or even at the block level, if we take a larger picture. Okay, so they deliver care services at the grassroots level. In India there are several villages, they lack the primary healthcare facilities. Okay, they lack primary healthcare facilities. So when those villages lack primary healthcare facilities, asha workers asha workers reach to those villages, and they provide all the primary healthcare services, right from the vaccination, medicine, and the nutrition information, healthcare information, and family planning. So all the services are being provided by ASHA workers in remote and rural areas where there is a lack of primary healthcare facilities. Okay, so this says that recently a national mental health survey was conducted. Okay, national mental health survey was conducted. So, according to this survey was conducted in the year 2015 and 16. Okay, so this survey found that 1 in 8 or 9 out of 8 or 9 out of 8 or 9, so one person has been suffering with the mental disorders in India. Okay, so that person has been suffering with the mental disorders in India, and 83% of them did not receive any treatment or any help. So we have discussed the mental health care professionals, not even one for 1 lakh population. So therefore, 83 percentage of people who suffer with mental distress, they did not seek any care, okay, or any help or any treatment. Because of that, there is a suicidal tendencies, okay, suicidal tendencies among the people. Okay, so therefore, it has been highlighting that. Uh, 83 percentage of people, they did not seek any treatment or any help, and one in total 8 people have been suffering with any type of a mental disorder. So therefore, the project Empower provides training to ASHA workers, provide training to ASHA workers to deal with these mental illness or the mental distress. Okay, so therefore, the services or the treatment help could be provided to those people who are in the distress. However, ASHA workers have been facing several challenges. Okay, so we already discussed what are the challenges they are facing, because they are walking around 15 kilometer a day. They are also called as a foot soldier. They lack transportation facilities, and their incentives are delayed, and they are working at a much lower salaries. So apart from those challenges, they are also overburdened. Okay, ASHA workers are also overburdened because salaries in most cases is around 2000 a month, and their pay is lower than a daily wage laborer. So this is in the case of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so they are paying a very less salary per month, and their incentives are also delayed. They have a huge roles and responsibilities, but their salaries are very low, even not even comparable to the daily wage laborer. And apart from this, the ASHA workers are also being deployed to other duties. So therefore, it has been increasing the work burden on the ASHA workers. Okay, so this is the complete picture of about the ASHAs and the project Empower. See, this is very important for mains examination. So please remember all these points. Okay. The next very important news article is, should India consider phasing out nuclear power? Okay. Recently, we have discussed the Jaitapur nuclear power plant. Okay, the Jaitapur nuclear power plant and the liability, the supplier liability issues with France, and we also discussed the Indian legislation regarding the supplier liability and the operator liability. Uh, Nuclear Liability for Civil Damages Act that was passed in the year 2010. So, however, there has been an increased push towards the nuclear power across the globe, because it is said that nuclear power is more clean and more reliable. Okay, it is more reliable. So as of now, countries have been pushing themselves to move away from the fossil fuels, and renewable energies like wind and solar are less reliable, uh, to be completely dependent on the sources of power. The countries have been looking towards the nuclear power. Okay, the countries have been looking towards the nuclear power generation of electricity through nuclear power plants. So therefore, in this context, the entire article discusses that, should India consider phasing out nuclear power, even though the total electricity we generate from the nuclear power is just around less than 2% in India. We mostly dependent on thermal power plants. Okay, we mostly dependent on thermal power for around 65 percentage of our total electricity needs. So even though we dependent on 2 percentage of the total electricity generation on nuclear power, is there a need to phase out the nuclear power? So we also get to know that recently Germany shut down its nuclear power plants. Okay, Germany shut down its nuclear power plants because of the safety concerns. Okay, the safety concerns. Major nuclear disasters in the history of mankind. One is the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Okay, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster that took place in the year 1986, and the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Okay, the Fukushima nuclear disaster in the year 2009 or 10. Okay, so because of these major accidents, there have been increasing concerns about the affordability of the nuclear power and their safety. Affordability and safety. So in this context, we will understand what is the scenario of power generation in India, why India should depend on nuclear power, and what are the lacunas and shortcomings in the power generation with the nuclear power. Okay, so before actually discussing this article, first try and understand the way, what are the areas and what are the states where we have a different nuclear power plants. So understand, India is planning huge increase in the nuclear power. Okay, India is making nuclear power one of its key policy initiatives, which plans to build around 48 new reactors. So India has been planning to build around 48 new reactors, and India is also planning to boost the output to 63,000 megawatts. Okay, overall output will be boosted to 63,000 megawatts by the year 2030, and it will also help India meet its net zero emission target of 2017 by the 2017. Okay, so total 63 megawatt of electricity generation by the year 2032 with 48 new reactors across the country, right? So almost a 14-fold increase in the current levels if India set up another 48 nuclear reactors, and that will lead to a 14-fold increase in the current levels of electricity generation through nuclear power, right? So the country existing, as of now, the country have a 22 nuclear reactors they generate around 4,700 megawatts of power. See, this is the statistics are very important for mains, and you should also remember the nuclear power plants and their location in different parts of the state. Okay, so please go through all the nuclear power plants like Haripur is in West Bengal, Chutka in Madhya Pradesh, and Bhimpur in Madhya Pradesh, Kovada in Andhra Pradesh, Kalpakkam in Tamil Nadu, Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu. So please go through all these nuclear power plants. Okay, so apart from that, we should also try and understand a few facts related to the nuclear power plants in India. Okay, so this is also the location of different power plants: the Madras atomic power plant, this is Kalpakkam power plant, Kudankulam power plant, both of them are located in the state of Tamil Nadu. Kaiga is located in Karnataka, Tarapur is located in Madhya Pradesh, Kakrapara in Gujarat, Rajasthan atomic power plant, that is Kota, it is located in Rajasthan, and Narora is located in UP. Okay, so when it comes to the facts related to nuclear power plants, we have discussed India currently has 22 nuclear power plants. Okay, 22 nuclear power stations, and 22 nuclear power reactors. 22 nuclear power reactors, and they are operating in 6 states. Okay, they are currently operating in 6 states, and the total installed capacity of India is 6,780 megawatt. Okay, so megawatt. So 6,780 megawatt. So activities concerning the establishment and utilization of nuclear facilities and use of radioactive sources are carried out in India in accordance with Atomic Energy Act 1962. India passed the Atomic Energy Act 1962, and all the activities which concern the establishment, utilization of nuclear facilities, and use of radioactive sources will be covered under the Atomic Energy Act 1962. So apart from this, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. In India, we have Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. So this board regulates nuclear and radiation facility activities across the country. Okay, so which one of the following is the largest and the newest power plant is Kudankulam nuclear power plant? It is located in the state of Tamil Nadu, right? So what is the first and oldest nuclear power plant? It is the Tarapur nuclear power plant, and it is located in the state of Maharashtra. So Tarapur is the oldest nuclear power plant in India, and the newest one is Kudankulam nuclear power station. So as part of this article that has been given in the newspaper, should India consider phasing out nuclear power. Okay, so this is the actual issue they dealt with. Should India consider phasing out nuclear power? So we have already discussed that Germany recently phased out. Germany recently shut down last of its nuclear power plant. Okay, so whatever nuclear power plants Germany have, it shut down those nuclear power plants. And France, the nuclear powerhouse of the world, is also struggling to replenish the stock of aging reactors. The France has also been considering the option of shutting down its nuclear power plants because it has been struggling to replenish the stock of the aging reactors. So apart from that, the advent of solar and wind energy, right? So with the advent of solar and wind power, especially because of concerns regarding the climate change and the Paris deal, right? Paris deal, so carbon trading mechanism, because of all these events, there has been an increasing importance for wind and solar energy. Okay, wind and solar energy and other renewable sources of energy. So with the solar and wind power becoming more popular globally, there are questions on whether the nuclear power, so with its current position, whether nuclear power, the concerns about the nuclear power is its cost plus and safety. Okay. So we already know about the Chernobyl accident and the Fukushima nuclear disaster, right? Fukushima nuclear disaster. So this raises the safety concerns and also the huge cost involved in constructing, maintaining such nuclear power plant, right? So therefore, as part of this article, it is looked in detailed way whether India should consider phasing out nuclear power or India should generate or construct more nuclear power plants. Okay, so uh, first understand what is the outlook on global power globally, right? So nuclear power globally, especially when solar and wind power are becoming more popular. Okay, so nuclear power is considered as green and it is absolutely low carbon. So nuclear power is not like a fossil fuel, right? So fossil fuel generate huge emissions and they are source of carbon and other harmful gases. Okay, they trap heat and that leads to climate change. On the other hand, nuclear power is green energy. Okay, this is green energy and it also contain very low carbon, absolutely low carbon. So apart from these advantages, it is a very firm, it is very firm, dispatchable, and more reliable. Okay, it is more reliable while compared to wind, solar energy, because when there is not enough of wind, or all the day you cannot have wind, so therefore the potential of generating electricity through wind farms would be less. So when you don't have enough sunlight, for example, when it is cloudy or when it is in rainy season, you may not be able to produce enough electricity through solar, right? Solar projects, through various solar projects. So therefore, if we compare the nuclear energy with the wind and electricity, the nuclear energy will be more reliable. Okay, it will be more reliable. It is firm and dispatchable power. Okay, so this has been emphasized here. So what is the meaning of firm? Firm power is power that can be sent to the electric grid to be supplied whenever needed. So whenever there is a need, that can be readily supplied to the grid through the nuclear power plants. On the other hand, it is not the case with the wind and solar farms. Okay, wind and solar farms. So as part of it, South Korea recently announced that South Korean president announced that they have changed their energy policy. Okay, South Korea changed their energy policy, and South Korea itself committed increasing the share of nuclear power in the country's energy mix. So what is energy mix? The source of energy, the total source of energy or electricity. Okay, for example, if we look at the energy mix of India, we generate electricity from thermal power plants, hydroelectricity, nuclear power plants, renewable energies. So right, so this is actually the contribution of total energy into is considered as the energy mix. So therefore, South Korea has changed its policy, its energy policy, and it says by the year 2030, 30% of total energy will be generated from the nuclear power plant or nuclear sources. And UK has also recently announced, the United Kingdom or England. So it is recently announced that uh, without scaling up nuclear power, it won't be possible to decarbonize the electricity sector. So there are concerns and the collective voice to decarbonize the electricity sector. So electricity sector is one of the major source of carbon. Okay, it is one of the major source of carbon because how? Because fossil fuels are used to generate electricity, so because of this reason, United Kingdom, Britain says that without using the nuclear power, it is not possible to decarbonize the electricity sector. So therefore, they are also signaling that they will use the nuclear power to to ensure their respective targets. However, there are certain concerns. Okay, so before actually, there are a low share of nuclear power in India. So every one of us know that it is just around less than 2% of total energy mix in India. So this is the lowest share in India. Okay, so India has a very limited growth potential for hydropower. Uh, India has so far has a very low potential for hydropower. So what is a hydropower? Hydropower is electricity generated from the run of the river projects. Okay, run of the river projects. For example, India has been constructing a Ratil hydroelectricity project on the Chenab River. Okay, Chenab River. So this is a hydroelectricity project and run of the river project. So dams or reservoirs are constructed, and with the force of the water, electricity is being generated. Right. So therefore, India has a very limited potential for generating electricity through hydropower. So why India has a very limited potential? Because of the following reasons. India has a concerns regarding conservation of biodiversity. For example, yesterday we have discussed about the ecologically sensitive zones. So ecologically sensitive zones. If a hydropower project is being constructed in the ecological sensitive zone, that disturb the ecology and the ecosystem in that particular area. So therefore, concerns regarding the conservation of biodiversity is the one reason. And secondly, when you construct the hydropower project, you have to have a large tracts of land. Okay, you have to acquire a large tracts of land, and that leads to the submergence of forest areas and displacement of people, displacement of indigenous people, along with the displacement, the rehabilitation and resettlement challenges. Along with that, you need to compensate the landowners as well after acquiring the land. And apart from that, Himalayas are seismically very active. So because of these reasons, constructing hydropower projects in India is, it is difficult, or it has a lower potential. Okay, so the alternative to coal is nuclear power. So it says that a coal is a source of fossil fuel. No doubt about that. Coal is a source of fossil fuel. Now, coal is a source of fossil fuel. It emits the carbon into the economy. It emits the carbon into the atmosphere, and emission of the carbon into the atmosphere leads to the global warming. And that will ultimately counter the efforts of the countries which are aiming to reduce the global emissions. So therefore, nuclear power will be a reliable alternative for the coal. And as of now, we have been producing around 210 gigawatt of total electricity through coal. Okay, in India, as of now, we have been producing around 210 gigawatt of electricity through the coal, the thermal power plants, and it produces around 73 percentage of electricity in India. The coal produces around 73 percentage of electricity in India. However, the share of the nuclear power is around 3.2 percentage only. 3.2 percentage only. So the total share of nuclear power generation is around 3.2 percentage only. However, there are a few reasons right? There are few reasons and that hindering the growth of the nuclear power. Okay, so what are those reasons and that hindering or inhibiting the growth of the nuclear power? They are, one is monopoly. Okay, so for example, in India, the operator of nuclear power plants is Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. So it is the only agency which generally operate all the nuclear power plants in India. So therefore the monopoly inhibiting or hindering the potential to generate more and more electricity through the nuclear power plants, because all reactors are operated by the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, and the first thing that must happen in order to produce more electricity through nuclear plants or nuclear power plants is through civilian nuclear program. Okay, civilian nuclear program. So, as part of the civilian nuclear program, the government should allow companies like National Thermal Power Corporation to get into the nuclear. Okay, so the government should allow, along with the uh, you know the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, the government should also allow National Thermal Power Corporation of India Limited, and that will help India achieve the net zero emission target. That will help India achieve the net zero emission target by the year 2070. Okay, so when you are able to bring in more and more players into the electricity generation or into the nuclear power plant field, then there is a possibility that the overall share of nuclear power in the India's total energy mix will significantly increase, and that will help India meet its target of net zero or becoming net zero by the year 2070. And we will also need a combination of small modular reactors and large reactors. So we should not completely depend on large reactors, but along with that, we should also need a small reactor. There should be a combination of small reactors and large reactors. Okay. So, sorry. However, it cannot be done by one company. Okay, so in the case it is the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. It should not be done by only a single company. It has to be done by multiple companies and allow players like National Thermal Power Corporation of India Limited. Right. So we have discussed whether the nuclear power, because the nuclear power is more reliable, it is more firm, and it is easily dispatchable, and there is a need to do away with the monopoly of National Power Corporation of India Limited and bring in more players into the field so that the nuclear power share would further increase in the total energy mix of India. Okay, so the next very important news article is the threat of rising sea levels. See, this is very important for both GS1 and the GS3 papers of mains exam. Okay, because we very often hear that the global warming leads to the melting of glaciers. Okay, it leads to the melting of glaciers, and melting of glaciers in a way leads to the rising sea levels across the globe. Okay, so melting glaciers in a way leads to the rising sea levels across the globe. Okay, so that particularly causes a concern because it led to the submergence of low-lying areas, seepage of the salt water uh, into the ground, and that creates the water crisis. And apart from that, soil salinity reduces the agricultural productivity. Okay, so reducing the agricultural productivity and also lead to the migration of people and climate refugees, etc. So all these problems are because of the rising sea levels and sinking and submerging of the low-lying areas, not just the developing or the least developed countries, but even the developed countries as well. Okay, so before actually discussing this article, first understand what it exactly says. See, it says that the sea level rise could hit a 2 meter by 2100. Recently, the World Meteorological Organization published a report. Okay, so it published a report, and this report says that by the year 2010, if efforts were not taken to limit the global temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius or to 2 degrees Celsius, then the global sea levels would rise to around 2 meters, and that would submerge most of the low lying areas. And the it says that the global sea level could rise more than 2 meters by the end of the century, and that would result in large scale displacement of almost 200 million people. Okay, so that will result in a large scale displacement of almost 200 million people if global warming continues at its current pace, at its current rate. Then that would lead to the displacement of around 200 million people. So here in this map, it has been clearly mentioned that from which area more people will be displaced. So if you see in South Asia has the highest amount of people who can displace. Okay, they can displace. You can see here South Asia consists of India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, Maldives. Okay, so South Asia could experience a displacement of around 57 million people. So apart from South Asia, Southeast Asia is vulnerable, and East Asia is also very vulnerable. So you can go through this map. So it is also discussed that the global temperature increase, if the global temperature increase stays below 2 degrees Celsius, it is target set by the Paris Climate Deal COP21. Okay, so COP21 target was to limit the global temperatures by 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Okay, so then the average melting of ice sheets would contribute to estimated 26 centimeters to sea level rise by the year 2100. Okay, so by the end of this century, if the Paris deal is able to meet the set target of limiting global temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius, then the sea levels would rise around 26 centimeters. Okay, however, in the worst case scenario, there is a 5% chance that contribution could be as much as 80 centimeters. Okay, so the contribution from the melting ice, and that leads to the sea level rise, would be around 80 percentage, and rise could exceed even 1 meter if the other factors like melting glaciers, expansion of ocean water as it warms, and taken into account. So if those factors are also taken into account, then the sea levels would rise around 1 meter, and the consequences would be unimaginable, because it submerges majority of the areas, and it would also create water stress or water crisis, and it also results in the fertile plains submerging under the sea. So therefore the food insecurity or the food crisis would also emerge. However, it says that if global temperature increased by 5 degrees Celsius, the current trajectory of economic growth continues. Because of the current trajectory of economic growth, it is expected, if it is continued further, then there will be an increase in 5 degrees Celsius temperature by the end of this century. And on an average, melting sheets would contribute to estimated 51 centimeters of sea level rise by 2100. So this is all the data and the statistics about the sea level rise. Okay, so first, actually discussing this article, we need to understand, so what are the causes why the sea level has been rising. And first understand, since early 1990s, global mean sea level has risen about 8 centimeters. Okay, so since 1990s, overall global mean sea temperatures have risen to 8 centimeters. So this is mainly because of the several factors. So what are those factors? The factors include melting glaciers or melting ice sheets. So ice sheets that cover the Greenland, Antarctica, and Arctic regions, they hold about 99% of Earth's fresh water, with the potential to raise sea level dramatically. Okay, so with the potential to raise this sea, if they melt away those glaciers, then that potentially increase the overall sea surface temperatures. Okay, so secondly, the global warming is also the main reason for increasing sea surface temperatures. The average global temperature has increased by about 1 degree Celsius. Okay, the average sea surface temperatures increased by 1 degree Celsius over the last 150 years, especially after the advent of industrial revolution, especially after the beginning of industrial revolution. And this is largely because of greenhouse gases being emitted into the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases like methane, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, so etc. So they contribute to the increased warming and the global warming. and they are trapping the heat and the temperatures. Okay, so apart from that, there is a thermal expansion also. As ocean warms, when ocean water warms in response to climate change, because of climate change and the global warming, the ocean water is warming up, and that led to seawater expansion. Okay, so when water warms, and that led to seawater expansion, and as a result, sea levels have also been rising. Okay, so you have understood a few major reasons which leading to the sea level rise. Now first understand what are the impacts of sea level rise. So we understood what are the main reasons for increasing sea level, and also understand the impacts of sea level rise. So first reason is coastal flooding. Higher tides move a storm surge higher and further inland. Okay, so because of if there is a higher tide, okay, you may know about the high tide and the low tide, so which usually takes place in the coastal areas. If there is a high tide, because of the increasing sea surface temperatures, and high tides move a storm surge higher and further inland, right? So this will lead to the storm surges, and the water will enter into the agriculture fields and also the habitations, and that will lead to extreme events, and they will be more frequent. So 100-year flood could become a 10-year floods. Okay, a hundred-year floods could become 10-year floods. And secondly, habitat loss. So habitat loss. So rising sea levels reduces the size of mud flats. So in coastal areas there are mud flats. Okay, in coastal areas there are mud flats, so they are formed, and that will lead to the, I mean, rising sea levels lead to the submergence of reducing the size of mud flats and marshes in the coastal areas, and intertidal habitats. Okay, so they are actually the transition zone between the terrestrial ecosystem and the coastal ecosystem, and that will lead to, I mean, increasing sea surface temperatures lead to reducing size of these mud flats, marshes, and intertidal habitats. So if there is no upland area available for migration, I mean, if there is no upland area is not available, and that habitat will be lost due to the sea level rise, because these mud flats, intertidal habitats, and marshes host several, several microorganisms, several, uh, it is a habitat. So therefore, if it is submerged, then that would lead to the migration. If there is no upland available for their migration, for amphibian species, if the migration it is not available, then that would lead to the complete habitat loss. So apart from that, the salinity change. So higher sea level cause higher groundwater levels, and this increase the salinity harms. No, this increases in salinity, and that will harm the wells. Okay, see, imagine if there is an increase in the sea level, if there is an increase in the sea level, and that cause higher groundwater levels, so that will increase the groundwater levels, and increasing groundwater levels will contaminate with the saline water, and they will be no longer potable. Okay, they will be no longer potable, and that creates a possible water crisis. And septic systems, vegetation will also be submerged with this, and that leads to the water pollution. And it also reduces the soil stability and water quality. So it is true that when seawater intrudes into the coastal habitats, or it is polluting the groundwater, then that will reduces the water quality, and also reduces the overall soil stability. And it will also leads to erosion and deposition. Okay, so erosion and deposition is a common phenomenon in the coastal areas, but increasing sea surface temperatures further give a push to the erosion and deposition in the coastal areas. So for example, this is a house, and if there is an increase in the erosion activity, if there is an increase in the erosion activity, their housing and the infrastructure will be lost because of the erosion activity. Okay, first, okay, now try and understand this article. So what exactly this article has been saying, right? So there was a report, okay, from the World Meteorological Organization. So this the name of the report is the State of Global Climate. Please remember this report. The report name is State of the Global Climate. So you may get the question in prelims. So which the State of the Global Climate report is published by which of the following agencies? And this report was published by World Meteorological Organization. And this report says that there is a threat of accelerating sea level rise. The existing sea level rise will further accelerate because of a faster melting of glaciers, increasing global warmings, and climate change. And this report is particularly focused on the consistent rise in global temperatures. So it says there has been a consistent increase in the overall global temperatures because of the fossil fuels, vehicular emissions, and also increasing the greenhouse gas emissions from other sources. Okay, so consistent rise in global temperatures and record breaking increase in the concentration of greenhouse gases, and that will lead to the glacial loss. Okay, so if temperatures are increasing, then that will lead to the melting of glaciers in Greenland, Arctic, and Antarctica region. So if glaciers started to melting, then that will increase the overall sea surface temperatures. Okay, and even a sustained drought like conditions in East Africa, this was also quoted by this report, the state of global climate. There was a sustained drought like conditions in Eastern Africa. Okay, in the Eastern Africa. And apart from that, there was a record rainfall in Pakistan and unprecedented heat waves that struck Europe and China in the year 2022. In fact, in the year 2023, India is also experiencing severe heat wave like condition. Severe heat wave like conditions. So all these factors have been highlighted by the World Meteorological Organization in its State of Global Climate report. Okay, so apart from the above mentioned aspects, the World Meteorological Organization has found that the world's sea level is rising at an unprecedented rate. Okay, the sea levels have been rising at an unprecedented rates, and that led to the potentially disastrous consequences. And when the sea levels have been rising at an unprecedented rate, and that leads to the potentially disastrous consequences for weather, agriculture, groundwater crisis, and various social disparities. Okay, so sea level rises will not only have impacts on few elements, but it will also impact the agriculture, the groundwater, and the social disparities. Droughts and floods, heat waves affected the communities in on every continent. Okay, because of the increasing sea level rise, global warming, climate change, the droughts, floods, heat waves affected communities on every continent, and that costs billions of dollars. Because see, if there is an increasing intensity of these disasters, the climate linked disasters, and that will lead to the loss of infrastructure, that will leads to the loss of infrastructure, and will also lead to the loss of lives. Okay, loss of lives. So therefore there has been a huge destruction being caused to the infrastructure by these natural disasters. There is a loss of, it costs billions of dollars for the reconstruction and restoration. However, it also said that the Antarctic sea ice fell to its lowest extent on record. Antarctica, Greenland together contribute around more than 90% of the fresh water. So therefore, because of the global warming, there has been an increasing melting of these glaciers. While the sea level rise is one of the several compounding disasters. So this is just the sea level rise is just one of the compounding disaster. It also merits individual attention for the other crises like the coastal areas. I mean, uh, when the sea level rise, when the rising uh, sea levels are rising, and that will impact the coastal areas and the communities which are living in the coastal areas, the coastal living communities, and their dependence on the sea and their ability to render the loss of life, or their ability to withstand the loss of life. Okay, so sea level rise have a major consequences on the people who are living in the coastal areas, especially the coastal communities, because their lives and livelihoods are particularly dependent on sea. Okay, however, what exactly is causing the sea level rise? So what are the reasons for the rise of sea level? So earlier also we have discussed what are the major reasons for the sea level rise. They include global warming, and ocean water expansion because of warming, and apart from that, melting glaciers. Okay, these are the major reasons for the rise in sea surface temperatures. However, the World Meteorological Organization says that the main reasons for increasing global sea mean level is ocean warming. Okay, so ocean warming, generally what happens? Because of higher temperatures, the ocean water warm. So the ocean waters generally, they are more warmer. So more warmer waters expand further, and when they expand, then that will lead to the sea level rise. So apart from this, there is a ice loss from the glaciers also. There are glaciers in Greenland, Antarctica, Arctic, and those glaciers were lost, or they are gradually melting. And not just glaciers but ice sheets also, and also changes in the land water usage. Because of all these reasons, there has been an increasing or the sustained rise in the sea level, and that has been impacting a different, uh, that has been creating a different problems like social disparities, the groundwater crisis, and impacts on weather and agriculture. So, as increasing concentration of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases drive global warming. So, no doubt that the increasing concentration of carbon dioxide, and along with the carbon dioxide, other greenhouse gases, and that have been driving the global warming. And 90% of the extra heat is stored in the oceans. So the heat which is generally stored in the oceans, and that lead to the warming up of oceans, right? So that leads to ocean warming. And when oceans warm up, and that lead to expansion. Okay, so when oceans are warming, that lead to expansion, that is called as thermal expansion. And thermal expansion in a way leads to the increasing sea surface temperatures, or the global sea mean level. And secondly, there is a cryosphere on planet Earth. So what is a cryosphere? Cryosphere has includes the Arctic and the Antarctic regions, right? So this is also called as sea ice. So we have discussed that glaciers and ice sheets have been melting. So together, the glaciers and the ice sheets in the Arctic and the Antarctica regions are known as the cryosphere on the planet. So they are also melting, and not just in the Arctic and Antarctica, but also in the Greenland region. Okay, because of all these reasons, there has been an increase. There has been an increase in the sea level rise. So we have discussed what are the main reasons for the sea level rise. Now understand what will be the problems of the sea level rise. Okay, what are the problems it will cause if the sea levels rise? Now, rising sea levels swallow more land cover. Okay, so because when sea level rise, and that will lead to the submergence of coastal areas or the coastal stacks, or that will lead to the storm surges or increasing tides. Okay, so that will swallow more land cover, and that will happen particularly in rural areas, coastal communities, and coastal communities will face an acute shortage of land for human use. So when the land is being submerged, when it swallows the more land cover, then the coastal areas, the people who are living in the coastal areas, either they migrate, from their villages, or they have a very less, land to use. Okay, so because of the sea level rise, and this land crunch will mean that those who better off will be able to cope up better than the marginalized sections or the marginalized groups. So within those coastal communities, whoever are better off or well off, they are able to withstand the effect of climate change, but the marginalized groups will not be able to, or will not be able to cope up with such challenges, and that will lead to the increasing social disparities. Okay, so that will lead to the increasing social disparities across the globe, particularly in India. Okay, so apart from that, uh, Generally, India is vulnerable to cyclones. India is vulnerable to cyclones, and they originate not just from the Bay of Bengal but also from the Arabian Sea. So, okay, in this context, if sea levels have been increasing or rising, then most of the understand most of the cyclones originate at open seas. Okay, so they originate at open seas. The global warming, the increasing global warming, or the warming of oceans provide a conducive conditions for the origin of cyclones. Okay, so it provides a conducive condition for the origin of cyclones. Therefore, the intensity of such cyclones will further rise, and that will leave a huge trail of destruction. Okay, that will lead to a huge trail of destruction and loss of billions of dollars in terms of the infrastructure destruction, or the habitat losses, etc. uh, Understand the global sea mean level continues to rise along the rise in ocean temperatures, and the chances of cyclones could increase. And India would experience more and more cyclones because of warming oceans and increasing sea surface temperatures and sea levels, and that will disproportionately affect the coastal communities and leading to the large economic liabilities for tropical countries like India. Okay, so in countries like India will have a large economic liabilities. Okay, so not just India but South Africa and countries which have higher population densities, mostly South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asian countries. So apart from that, if global sea mean level increases or rises, sea water could seep into the ground. Okay, so increase in the global or rise in sea level, that lead to the seep into the groundwater. The saline water would seep into the groundwater, and that will lead to the groundwater, and leading to the groundwater, which is usually the fresh water, not marine water. In groundwater is generally fresh water. So this fresh water would turn into saline water because of increasing sea surface temperatures, and that could further exacerbate water crisis in India, especially in coastal areas and agriculture in adjacent regions. Because agriculture also requires irrigation. Okay, agriculture also requires irrigation, and you cannot irrigate fields through a saline water. Okay, you cannot irrigate fields through saline water. That will increase the soil salinity, and that will result in crop losses. So therefore it is not just create water crisis but will also affect the agriculture and irrigation in the nearby areas. So these are some of the consequences of rising sea level. Okay, now also understand here, an example is given. Okay, an example is given, you can quote this example in the examination as a consequence of rising sea levels. Okay, so the example is, the example is particularly on the rising sea level and its impact on societies. Okay, the rising sea level and its impact on the societies. So this is generally regarding the Sundarban delta. Okay, Sundarban. So this is the largest mangrove delta in the world, largest mangrove delta in the world, located in the state of West Bengal. Okay, located in the state of West Bengal. Now, Sundarban Delta in West Bengal is the world's largest mangrove area. Okay, so these are the people; they are indigenous people who live in the those mangrove, region. See, rising sea levels and the coastal erosion leads to loss of land. We have discussed how rising sea level will lead to the loss of land, and not just a loss of land, but will also lead to sediment, loss of sediment from the coastal areas, and that will ultimately lead to the submergence. Okay, that will ultimately lead to the submergence of the land under the water. Okay, so erosion will lead to the submergence of land underwater, and that will in turn force the members of the local communities to migrate to other areas. Okay, this will also create a problem of climate refugees. Okay, this will also create a problem of climate refugee. Along with that, there will be an increasing stress on existing resources. For example, imagine if we have groundwater resources. If we have groundwater resources, due to increase in sea level, and that the saline water will seep into the groundwater, and turning the groundwater into the saline water, turning the saline water. So therefore, there has been a reduction in the natural resources. So whatever resources we have, with the huge population, with the huge population, there will be increasing demand on such resources. So therefore, these sustainable development goals cannot be achieved. The decent standard of living for the people will not be provided due to rising sea levels. Okay, due to rising sea levels. So therefore, all the countries should act on climate change, limit their temperatures, overall temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius. So India is a best example that it has been acting proactively, even though it is a developing country. It has been announced several ambitious programs, right? It has been announced several ambitious programs to decarbonize its economy. Okay, decarbonize its economy. So one such aspect was the intended nationally determined contributions. India is able to meet these contributions, and India is able to meet the solar energy generation targets, okay, by the year 2022. And India also set the ambitious target under Mission Panchamrut, which were announced by Prime Minister Modi in Glasgow Summit. Okay, Glasgow Summit. So the net zero emission by the year 2070 is also part of the Mission Panchamrut. Okay, so this is all about the rising sea levels. Okay, increasing sea levels. Now understand, this is about the same-sex marriages. We all know that Supreme Court, the Constitution bench of the Supreme Court has been hearing the legalization of same-sex marriage petitions filed by few individuals. Okay, so they are demanding that the government should recognize the same-sex marriages, so that the benefits of so the benefits of heterosexual couple will be extended to the same-sex couple as well. Okay, same-sex couple as well. However, Center has been strongly opposing the legal recognition to same-sex marriages, and also saying that it should be a legislative domain, and that should decide whether providing legal status to same-sex marriage or not. Okay, so on the other hand, the Supreme Court recently said that it can play a role of facilitator to push the government into the taking administrative steps, and that would bring down the barriers and ease the day-to-day human concerns. See, this is particularly in the context of uh, there are these benefits generally not extended. Okay, these benefits are not extended to the homosexual couple. Okay, because their marriage is not recognized, so therefore the benefits like the government pensions and medical benefits, claiming leave, travel allowance, right to property or inheritance, joint adoption. In case of separation, there is no provision to seek maintenance, the economically weaker partner, and right to take emergency medical decisions. Okay, so these benefits are not extended to the same sex couple because their marriages were not recognized by the government. Okay, their marriage is not recognized by the government. Since these benefits are not extended to the same sex couple, they have filed a petition in the Supreme Court that their marriages should be legally recognized. However, what Supreme Court says, rather than dealing with whether giving legal status to the same sex marriage, the Supreme Court will facilitate uh, the Supreme Court will play a role of facilitator, compelling the government to provide all these services to the homosexual couple. Okay, the Supreme Court says it will play a role of facilitator, compelling the central government to provide all these benefits rather than legally recognizing the same sex marriage. Rather than legally recognizing the same sex marriage. So, Supreme Court will not decide whether the same sex marriages should be legally recognized or not. Supreme Court shown the intention that this matter should be decided by the legislature. On the other hand, Supreme Court says that it will play a facilitator role in providing all these benefits to the same sex couple so that they will not face any discrimination. Okay, so they will be able to live a more dignified life. Okay, so this is what this article has been saying. The Supreme Court will be a facilitator to push the government into taking administrative steps. Okay, taking administrative steps, and those administrative steps will bring down the barriers and ease day to day human concerns that will be faced by cohabitating same sex partners. So the benefits include joint banking, insurance, admission of children into school, and without actually touching upon the legal recognition to same sex marriages. Okay, without actually touching upon the issue of legal recognition to same sex marriage, these benefits or the advantages will be given to the same sex couple. Okay, so however, this is actually the seventh day hearing. The yesterday hearing was the seventh day hearing of the of this legal recognition to same-sex marriage. However, the petitioners have been asking for the legal status, outright legal status for same-sex marriages. So that witnessed a sharp diversion on the part of the Constitution bench. Okay, now what is the sharp diversion? The sharp diversion is that the Constitution bench will not go into the whether this marriage should be legalized or not. Okay, so rather than the court would compel or the court would convince the center to provide the benefits which are otherwise not extended to the same sex couple to be extended to these people. Okay, so the recognition, the legal recognition to same sex marriage will be decided by the legislature. So this is what the Supreme Court says as part of this article. So now also understand why the same-sex couple arguing for the recognition of the same-sex marriage. The one is this reason. Because of these reasons, they are also demanding the legal recognition. So apart from that, there are few other reasons. They are the sexual orientation is an essential component of identity and dignity, which are embedded in the right to life. Okay, so they say that the sexual orientation of an individual is an essential component of individual identity and dignity, and which are generally embedded in right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution. So apart from that, the decision to marry or not is one's life momentous act of self-decision. Right? This is a momentous act of self-decision. So therefore, it should be left to the individual, and legal recognition should be provided also. The law protects and recognizes companionship through the institution of marriage. So companionship between male and female is generally recognized by law through an institution of marriage. Okay, so sexual autonomy and freedom to choose one's partner is an intrinsic part of sense of selfhood, and it is also a part of the one's bodily autonomy. Okay, because of these reasons, because of these factors, they have been demanding the legal status to the same sex marriages. So please remember all these points. So these points are very important. Okay, so please remember all these points. So the next very important news article is the Dimasa. Okay, Dimasa rebel group. So this is an insurgent group in the state of Assam. Okay, this is an insurgent group in the state of Assam, and that has recently signed a pact with the center and the government of Assam. Okay, center and the Assam. Okay, so as per the pact, this as per the peace pact, they will they will not no more be part of any insurgency activity or any violent activity. Okay, so this is a peace pact. So it says that the Assam based insurgent group, the name of the group is Dimsa National Liberation Army. Okay, so this is actually the Dimsa National Liberation Army, or it is also called as Dimsa People's Supreme Council. Dimsa People's Supreme Council. See, this is very important for prelims exam. Okay, you just remember this. There are several insurgent groups within northeastern region. Either they demand the separate state on ethnicity basis, or they demand or they are secessionist in nature. Okay, so therefore the Dimasa is also part of the Assam. This is from the Assam region. So therefore, the government has been reaching out to such insurgent groups in the recent past. So one such example is National Socialist Council of Nagaland. Okay, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Isaac Muvaya. So the center has also signed a peace pact with this organization for a ceasefire and mainstreaming the individuals so that the insurgency could be reduced in the northeast. Okay, insurgency could be reduced in the northeast, and the northeastern region will be more mainstreamed. Northeastern region will be more mainstream. See, there have been attempts on the part of the government to integrate the northeastern region with the Southeast Asia and East Asia as part of government's Act East policy. Okay, as part of the government's Act East policy. So as part of this, the government has been focusing on increasing investments. So increasing investments and infrastructure, right? Particularly connectivity to northeastern region. In fact, the government also allowed Japan to invest in the northeastern region. This is only foreign country that has been allowed to invest in the northeastern region. Investment and developing infrastructure and using the existing skilled workforce, etc. Okay, so northeastern region has a huge potential for the development. However, along with the potential, there is a need for conducive and peaceful environment for the facilitation of any investment or infrastructure. So as part of this, the union government has been reaching out to various insurgent groups and signing such peace deals so that they are out of the insurgency and they can be mainstreamed and peace could be prevailed in the northeastern region. Okay, and this is actually this Dimasa National Liberation Army operates in Dimasa Hasao district. Okay, this is actually operate in Dimasa Hasao district, that is in Assam, and that has signed a peace agreement with the state government, and not just with the state government and the center government also. Okay, and it was took place in the presence of Home Minister Amit Shah. So after the signing of the memorandum of understanding, uh, Home Minister Amit Shah says that the agreement will put the complete end to insurgency and there are no more armed groups in Assam. So once this insurgency agreement is signed with the Dimasa National Liberation Army or a National Liberation Army, then there will be no more insurgency in the state of Assam. Okay, so Dimasa National Liberation Army representatives have agreed to give up the violence and surrender, including the surrender of arms, ammunition, and disband their armed organizations and vacate all camps occupied by the Dimasa National Liberation Army cadres. Okay, so now they are surrendering themselves and they will be mainstreamed and they will also be provided rehabilitation and resettlement. And for the rehabilitation and resettlement of this group along with the North Kachar Hills region, the center will provide around 500 crore. Okay, the center will provide 500 crore plus the state government of Assam will provide 500 crore. Okay, so their cultural, political, economic, social rights will be respected. This is what the agreement says, the peace accord or the peace pact says. Okay, just remember the Dimasa rebel group and it is from Assam. Okay, the peace pact was signed by the government of India and Assam. Okay, so these are all very important and relevant news articles for today's discussion. Okay, thank you.